And so sort of by focusing on marijuana as a symbol, we hope to sort of broaden the platform, but still keep it centered around marijuana. And I think we were successful in doing that. We had a broad range of candidates from really all ends of the political spectrum. We had people who were past members of the Libertarian Party, as well as people who would call themselves socialists and who were involved with the NDP Party or the Green Party, which are both very sort of left-wing parties. And so we tried to go sort of beyond the left and right-wing dichotomy to this new idea that it's about your own right and your own freedom to do with as you choose, and not so much, you know, what kind of government what you would like. And we did pretty well with that. And I think municipally we'll probably keep it down to a more narrow focus, because the municipal government doesn't have a lot of power to change the world and to institute a lot of these things. So we want to keep our municipal focus on ending the drug war, and especially in Vancouver, which has a horrible rate of HIV transfer, hepatitis, and of drug overdoses from the use of heroin, and heroin combined with alcohol. And we have something called the downtown east side in Vancouver, which is a horribly poor area. It's Canada's poorest postal code. And the police and the government allow things to go on in that area that they don't allow anywhere else. And so you get people shooting up openly, and you get people doing things openly which wouldn't be if someone were to do that in the suburbs, they'd be arrested or sent to the downtown east side. But the problem with having this pocket of sort of tolerance in a sea of intolerance is that everyone comes there, and as a result they're sharing needles, and it produces all the disease and all the problems into one small area. And so we'd like to see, I mean, for the BC or for Vancouver Marijuana Party, we advocate that those who are addicted to or who need heroin and cocaine have these things delivered to them for free or for cost to their own homes, where they don't have to buy it on the street, where they can have a clean, measured dose at any one time. People aren't dying. It would cost us way less in terms of dollars. It would help these addicts get their lives back together and not become victims and have to prostitute themselves and have to spread disease and commit crimes to get their money to pay for their drugs. And studies in Switzerland and other parts of the world show that when you help addicts or heroin and cocaine users get what they need at a cheap or at the rate cost, which is very little compared to the prohibition tax they pay, they get their lives together. They start getting jobs. They stop being prostitutes. So we want to help these people to get out of their situation and create a positive environment for them. And something else that kind of ties in with the marijuana party is people talk about marijuana being a gateway drug, and they claim that if you smoke marijuana, it leads to heroin and cocaine. But for us, and from my experience, is often marijuana is a gateway back. And it helps those who are hooked on harder drugs, who are using harder drugs, to get off of those things. And so if we had legal marijuana for these people, it might help them to smoke pot instead of using harder drugs as well. And there's a certain dichotomy when marijuana is not available. When your drug of choice isn't available, you'll use something else, whether it's alcohol or cocaine or whatever. So by keeping marijuana off the market, our police and our government are really encouraging the use of harder, more dangerous drugs. And so I think by making marijuana more available, by having a more tolerant drug policy, we can save the city a lot of money, we can save a lot of lives, we can save healthcare dollars, and we can make the city a better place. So to me, this seems a really no-brainer kind of policy. And I think it has support among a lot of people in Vancouver. People support these ideas typically with polls show people want legal marijuana. They want the police to focus on real crime. In Vancouver recently, actually not recently, for almost 10 years, we've had prostitutes been going missing in the downtown east side and other parts of the city. They've been getting murdered by serial killers and just disappearing, and the police have not really cared about it. They've done nothing about it because, well, they're just prostitutes, no one really cares, and they're not really worth our effort anyways. And so for the last 10 years, while these women are getting brutally murdered in the downtown east side, the police have always had more resources devoted to busting grow ops and to their green team than they have ever had to tracking down these serial killers. Now, they've recently found it's been a really big case. Some of your viewers might have seen some of it on the news. It's got international coverage of this farm in Abbotsford where they've been taking these bodies and everything. And to me, it's just shocking that our police consider marijuana grow ops a higher priority than serial killing and human life. That's a horrible set of priorities for the police to have. We want to change that and make it so that police are focused on real crimes.
All right, and I'm hoping that we in Louisville can learn from your all's work and your all's model up here in Vancouver and your successes. Dana, let me just change the subject for a little bit here. I'd like to know just a little bit about you personally. Are you from you're from Canada, are you?
I was born in Vancouver, one of the few people here who can say that. And pretty much everyone I work with in the BC Marijuana Party and Cannabis Culture magazine comes from somewhere else in the country. Although I can't say I blame them. I'd want to come here as well if I was in Toronto or Ontario or anywhere else. So especially for a marijuana smoker with marijuana culture. And also because there's a lot of us here, we can really work together and use the tolerance that we have and that we can enjoy in Vancouver to spread that. People say, well, things are pretty good there. Why do you bother? I mean, you can get away with growing pot and smoking pot. It's like, well, yeah, but we have to use that freedom to help our brothers and sisters around the world and to make sure it never gets worse here as well. So we've really built a pretty strong team here, I think.
And when did you get involved with Cannabis Culture magazine?
Well, I've been doing the magazine since it began about 7.5 years ago. For the first 3 years, we were called Cannabis Canada. We focused very strongly on Canadian news.
In the first 3 years, about when did it? I didn't even hear of the magazine until maybe a few months ago, actually.
Well, let me think. Our first issue came out in 1994, if I remember correctly.
So you've been around for about 7
And yeah. And our first 3 years, we were Cannabis Canada. Then we changed our name to Cannabis Culture as we became more internationally
focused. So you were there. You were here from.
I'm the founding editor. Yeah,
oh, you're the founding editor.
Yeah.
Right?
Before Cannabis Canada, there was a newsletter called Marijuana and Hemp, which was founded by Mark Emery, who's now our publisher of Cannabis Culture, and I'll be talking to him later on. He's also the president of the BC Marijuana Party and, the owner of Mark Emery Direct Seed Sales.
Great.
And he came to Vancouver and he opened up a store called Hemp BC. And what we're in now is sort of the aftermath of Hemp BC, the BC Marijuana Party bookshop, essentially sort of the reincarnation of Hemp BC. And after he started a newsletter called Marijuana and Hemp. It started off as a little 4-page newsletter, then it became 8 pages, then 16 pages, and it became too big for him. And I was around at the time, and I've always been interested in writing and working with words and with marijuana culture and activism. So I took it over, and after one issue of the newsletter, it became Cannabis Canada magazine, and it sort of taken off from them. And now we enjoy a circulation of about 76,000 copies across North America. We sell most of our copies in the U.S., which is pretty rare for a Canadian magazine, most of which get subsidies from the government to avoid American competition, whereas we're doing the exact opposite, which we're very proud of. And we're actually about to launch a German translation, which will be hitting the newsstands in Germany at the end of July, if all goes well.
Right.
Still a bit touch and go right now, but if all goes well, I got a team over there working on it, and I'm really hoping to release our magazine there. And it's a very favorable market in Germany when it comes to advertising. The problem with doing a magazine like for marijuana in North America is that advertisers who might want to come to your magazine don't want to advertise with us. People who sell bongs and pipes, most of them pretend their products are for tobacco use only because they don't want to get busted, and fair enough. I mean, Chills and Barms and the 3 biggest American retailers and wholesalers of bongs and pipes are all under indictment right now. So no doubt they don't want to advertise with us. And also the grow companies that sell, hydroponics equipment, they don't want to talk about marijuana. They'll get busted too, especially in the States. So our advertising market's limited somewhat in North America. But in Germany and Europe, they don't care. Bong makers and pipe companies will be happy to advertise in a marijuana magazine. Hydroponic shops will say, grow marijuana with our equipment. It's much more open there. So the advertising market is stronger, which I think will allow our magazine to do well there, as well as it's doing in the North American market.
In the issues of Cannabis Culture that I have seen, there have been some very interesting articles, and I'm just curious, as an editor of the magazine over a number of years, are there any special stories or people that have contributed to the magazine that were of
well, yeah, I mean,
special interest?
We've actually just started releasing best ofs as well, so we're starting to sort of recycle some of our old material for our newer readers, and that's pretty good. We just released our best of all our grow equipment, and a lot of that was, or best of all our grow articles, and a lot of that was written by a guy named DJ Short, who's the breeder of the blueberry strain, which is a very well-known strain. It's beloved by many people, and he's the guy who created that, or who bred that, as well as a few other strains as well. So he's a really good writer, and I've really enjoyed having his grow material over the years, because a lot of grow stuff can get really dry, and he brings a whole sort of philosophy to it. He has a lot of technical information that's really useful, but he has a sort of a philosophy and a vision behind it, which I really enjoy.
Ed Rosenthal.
Ed Rosenthal recently joined us about 1.5 years ago, or 2 years ago, I guess, and he used to write for High Times, so the world famous Ask Ed column. Ed Rosenthal may be the most famous grow columnist, or the most famous marijuana person in the world in some ways. Almost everyone knows Ask Ed.
Yeah, I've met him myself.
And he had a bit of falling out with High Times, and their loss is our gain, so he's been writing for our magazine now, and his column's very popular, and we enjoy it. And Ed's had a few adventures recently with the police himself.
Yeah,
you might have heard about that. I won't get into that, but he's had some problems down there, but he's come through like a trooper, and he's still, not backing down, and he's still writing away and doing his stuff and not stopping at all, which is good, and I admire him for that. Another one of our writers is a fellow named Pete Brady. He's been writing for us since about 4.5 years now, something like that. And he's done some pretty interesting stuff. His first story that he wrote for me, I'd never heard from him, and he sent me a story promo, and he had gone up in the air with the CAMP project in California, the California copter cops that fly around and bust grow ops. And he told them, I'm writing for Vanity Fair or something, and just kind of told them a story and got into the plane and interviewed all these guys and got them to tell all these stories about why they hated marijuana and what they were wanting to do, and without having to really change anything, he portrayed them as the bunch of Yahoo idiots that they really are, and saying things like, take that, dope grower, earn an honest living like the rest of us, and saying how they smoked pot in high school and it made them really dumb, and so they vowed to stop anyone else from doing this. But it was an interesting kind of piece, and Pete's really good for that, for getting in there and talking to politicians. He talked to Jeb Bush in Florida, George Bush's brother, and he's talked to a lot of high-profile people that normally marijuana journalists don't get into, and he's pretty brave for doing that, although it makes him nervous sometimes too when he realizes these people know who he is.